Hi, my name's Kieran Martin. I'm a member of PD Data Sciences in Roche Genentech. I'm based in Welwyn Garden City, which is in the UK. I've been working at Roche for around 8 years. And I'm really excited to talk to you today about our new Coursera course called Making Data Science Work for Clinical Reporting. This course has been out since about January of this year, and we've already had loads of sign-ups. So I'm really excited to talk a bit about what it is and why we think it's worth taking today. So I'm going to begin by discussing a little bit as to why we chose to make the course in the first place. So some of the reasons that led us to thinking that this course would be a valuable resource for people. Then I'm going to talk through what's in the course, what the high-level topics that we cover are, and our philosophy around what we're doing. And then I'm going to finish by talking about what's next, the upcoming course that we're actually putting together, hoping to release next year, and the details of what's going to be involved in that. So why make a Coursera course in the first place? Well, one of my experiences when I went to conferences that were outside of the pharmaceutical industry was there were some extremely talented data scientists working in loads of different fields and solving lots of different problems. But not all of them were aware of the fact that the pharmaceutical industry is a place where data science gets used. So I think we're actually doing ourselves a disservice right now. There are plenty of talented data science graduates who don't even think about us as an opportunity. So we really wanted to make this course a demonstration as to how data science can be used in clinical reporting. And we wanted to show that there are actually unique problems to what we have to do that don't really occur in other industries, and I think make us a really interesting place for data scientists to work. But as well as that, we really wanted to make an argument about how data science should be used. You know, over the last couple of decades, there have been a number of advancements in the kind of technology and tools that people have been using, and the pharmaceutical industry hasn't always kept up with that. So we really wanted to make some slightly opinionated comments about how we thought data science could be best used in this context. And one thing we really wanted to do was make an argument for open sourcing in particular, proving that open source is something that can be really valuable in our industry to make us better for delivering results to our patients. So the course itself doesn't focus on pure data science skills. And what I mean by that is that if you go onto Coursera or indeed any kind of learning site, you can find dozens, perhaps even hundreds of courses which are going to teach you data science skills. And by that, I mean programming, machine learning, Python, R, all these kind of things, the basics of what you need to work in this industry. But one of the things that you don't get as much is how you unite all this work together. What does it look like to apply these skills in practice, and how do you use them efficiently? So we really wanted to talk about that. So rather than teaching people things they already knew, we wanted to look at how we can do these things in this context. And one of the questions, which I already alluded to when we were thinking about the reasoning as to why we put this course together, was what is it that makes clinical reporting unique? That's a question we wanted to keep asking ourselves and thinking about as we put this course together to make sure that we were really offering something invaluable that people couldn't get from another source. So related to that is this idea of how do we apply these new techniques in familiar areas? How do we take what they might know already, but apply it in this context where we have specific challenges, specific restraints about the way we work and the way we perform? Now, obviously, you'll have to see the course itself to discover some of our answers to that. But as I go through the sort of topics that we cover, I'm just going to mention some of the ideas that I think we get to a bit within the course. So I'm just going to break down now the 5 different modules that make up our course. Obviously, I won't give a full tour of the content here, but just to give you a flavor of what you might experience if you took on this course. So we begin by introducing the standards and regulations that we have to live by within the industry. And I think this is really important. We don't want to forget about the things we need to do to make sure that we are meeting our obligations when we are reporting on clinical trials. So that's obviously the regulatory standards that we use, CDISC, of course, MedDRA dictionaries, WHO drug dictionaries, things we have to make use of, but also requirements when it comes to the level of validation around the tools we use. We need to demonstrate that we have used tools that will work as expected, and also we have to demonstrate that we've met certain quality standards when we do our work. And that's really important for setting up all of the rest of the course, understanding those things that we have to do in this context. So next, we wanted to start off when we look at the data science skills by thinking about how we're going to apply those. So we think about, rather than, as I say, looking at running code in Python, how do we collaborate with one another? How do we make sure that our code functions well? So we begin by looking at the DevOps and Agile mindset, looking at how we get these tools and apply them effectively. And I think this is really important, I think the way we apply these tools is just as important as having those tools in the first place. And they kind of come hand in hand. You can't have this DevOps style without those tools, but equally without this DevOps style, those tools are much less useful. So making sure you can join those together is really important. We also take some time to discuss what do you do if you join the industry and they're not quite there when it comes to, for example, using Agile or using this DevOps method. How can you advocate for change from within the industry as well? So we're interested in answering those questions a little bit. So leading on from there, we start to talk about version control tools, and in particular, Git. And in some ways, this is nothing new. Git has been around for a long time, but in the industry, of course, it hasn't been used as much. And there might be questions here as to, when we think about the kind of work we're doing, how do we apply the tools in Git really effectively? So we're not trying to teach Git from scratch here. There are great courses for that. Instead, we're looking at, here's what Git is, and here's how we can use it effectively. One thing we talk about in this is the idea that this might actually make audit trails, which are really important for us from a regulatory perspective, much easier to generate, because Git plus GitHub and GitLab provide really useful tools for telling a story about the work you did and tracking what everyone did over time. So I think these kind of tools are really valuable to know and make use of. So next we get into the code a bit itself, but again, we're not looking at just the basics of writing code. We're thinking about, well, okay, you know how to write some code now, but do you know how to write code that's robust and is going to last for a long time? And again, this is another thing that we haven't always done brilliantly in the industry, at least in my experience. We've often been very output focused in terms of deliveries, rather than thinking about, can we make code that's going to last? Can we save ourselves time in the long run? And we really think that those skills are things that we can all learn to make ourselves more efficient and effective. And then finally, the last thing we wanted to talk about was, if we're advocating for the use of open source, taking on these tools that have been developed by people who are not within the industry, not within our company, we probably have never met these people before, how do we trust the code that we use that is from outside that context? And this code may have been generated by people who don't have a software engineering background. They may be statisticians or any kind of background who've put together an R package that we want to use. So we discuss some methodologies for thinking about how we approach the risk of using open source tools. And we hopefully come to a useful framework people can use. So you can see I've got the image of risk metric there, which is obviously the open source package for assessing our packages. And we talk about that and other methodologies we might use to determine how we're going to work with those open source packages. And this is, I think, a useful thing, not just for people within the industry, but again, if you're coming into the industry, thinking about that risk is maybe not something that people do. They don't worry so much about the quality of those packages, which is something I think we should do. So I think these are all really good ideas for people to take on board and make use of. So we've been really happy with the progress so far of this course. As I mentioned earlier, it came out in January of this year, and we've already had over 1,000 learners signed up for the course. That's really great. We're really pleased that we're having this outsized impact and people are taking it on board. And even internally, we've had some people taking on that course. It's been a really useful resource to point people to when we think about the philosophy of what we're doing right now and some of the tools and ideas we want people to take on. One of the really nice things about Coursera in this context is that the courses, and certainly our course, is actually available for free to audit. So if you go right now onto Coursera and type Making Data Science Work for Clinical Reporting, you should be able to find our course and register for it for free. And that will actually give you access to most of the content there. So all of the videos, all of the written work there, you'll be able to access. The only things you won't be able to see are any learning labs. I think there's a couple, and the assessment part as well. So if you want a certificate demonstrating that you've completed this course on Coursera, you do have to pay, but you can get a lot of value just by auditing that course. And that's really great for us because that it really wasn't about making a huge amount of money here. It really was about sharing all of this information that we think will make us all better data scientists and ultimately better at producing results that will help our patients. So I've got on this slide as well, I don't want to forget that I've been talking about myself throughout this video, but I was not the only person who developed this course. You can see all the names of all the contributors to the course there. I think you will see all of them in the videos on the course for each period of contact, and they all worked really hard to get this together. So great, much thanks to them if any of them are watching this video as well. So the last thing I wanted to talk about is what's next. So we have a new course coming next year. That's called Hands-on Clinical Reporting Using R. So as I've shown you, our course is not really focusing on teaching you how to write code, but more the principles of how you write that code and how you collaborate to write good quality code. But what we were aware of is that there are some areas where there's less learning resources for them. And one thing that has occurred to us for this was, in fact, the Pharmaverse. I know there have been some really great YouTube videos for Admiral as well. But what we wanted to do was put something that showed how you could integrate those all together. So what we've doing is making a course that shows how you apply these Pharmaverse packages, so Admiral and Nest in particular, to do nearly end-to-end, certainly Adam to TLG production work for clinical reporting. So we're really excited for that. That's being led by a colleague named Adrian Chan and should be coming out sometime next year. It probably won't be in January. It might be a little closer to like March, April, but definitely look out for that. And what that's going to lead into is what's called a Coursera specialization, which is really just a collection of different courses on Coursera that all form a common theme. That there will be another module following this that will really help us to build this sort of really useful resource, I hope, for people who want to understand what data science might look like in the context of the pharmaceutical industry and actually get that experience before joining the industry in these different tools. Because I think what's going to be really cool is if we have someone applying to work with us and they've gone through this course, then we know they're going to have experience using the tools that we're using in our day-to-day. So I'm really excited for this. Yeah, just as a reminder, our course that's live on the Coursera right now is called Making Data Science Work for Clinical Reporting. You can go right now and check it out. As I say, it's free to just audit it, so there's no reason for you not to check it out. I'm really excited for you to see it, give us any feedback you have. So thank you so much for your attention during this video, and please reach out to me if you have any questions. Thank you.